Hi everyone, Matt Artz here with another video for the Building Careers in Anthropology Conference, which is coming up May 13th at Fordham University. I'm here today with Beth Holland, who's a UX research manager at Radiant Digital, and we'll be putting on a workshop at the conference titled Nailing the Interview. So Beth, would you just mind by introducing yourself, letting everybody know kind of your anthropology story and how you came to UX?
Okay, great. My name is Beth Holland. I'm UX, like Matt said, I'm manager at Radiant Digital with their UX research, and but an anthropologist with my background in anthropology. Um, my story is it started off with a complaint call from my mother that I wasn't calling her enough to ask about how to cook roast and things like that, and it really started me to think to think about why um, how Google was replacing my like ancestral recipes, because I was just Googling recipes rather than calling my mother, and I thought, wow, this how technology is really impacting relationships, and that thought process really just led me back to going back to school and for my master's in applied anthropology from the University of North Texas. There, my thesis research was on toilet repair, which was not what I intended to go back to school to research, but that's always not now my backup profession. If this doesn't work out, I know how to fix toilets now. But that research led me to a lot of opportunities for research gigs, and from Malaysia to Mars, and like the candy company. So a lot of spaces in between. But it really was um, a person who I met at a AAA Napa workshop, Dr. Racine Brown, who introduced me to UX and pulled me in and gave me a break. And so uh, that has been my space for like close to a year now. And the reason why I'm doing this workshop is because Elizabeth Brody asked, and you just kind of do what Elizabeth asked when she asked, if you know Elizabeth. So, but I've been on both sides of the interview process and the interviewee, and so I do think that I have something from my experience to share. So I'm excited about doing that.
So, seeing as you've been in your role for a year now, that interview process is relatively fresh,
It
and I
is.
believe you're also hiring, as in the managerial role.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess tell me what about your experience as an interviewee really stands out to you, and what learnings from that are you bringing into this workshop?
Well, when I probably was in the interviewee process for about a year, and because I wasn't really searching, um, it wasn't a full time job searching, but when I found things that I thought fit in my value system, that's when I applied for positions. Which I think that's one of the things I do want to communicate, or I might not have enough time to communicate in this workshop about how to align your values with that company and how to find that during the interview process. But uh, when I was asked questions, I when I was being interviewed, I didn't realize the um, the intention necessarily behind the questions until I became the interviewer, and then I realized, okay, so this is why that question was being asked. Like what my future. How do I see my future um, in this position? I really do understand maybe the deeper meanings behind that, and also I have learned that some questions that are asked are not to be the answer doesn't have to be right. It just has to show that I've put in effort in a space, or that the person put effort in a space. And so those are the kind of things that I never would have known unless I'd been on both sides of the coin of the job search. So
And so, I know you're going to focus a little bit on UX, at least given that that's what you're working in. Just so maybe it's clear, is this for everybody or is it only for UX?
Well, it will be. It will be for everyone. However, since my experience is UX, and since I think that is a hot job market right now for new graduates and also for transitioning professionals from academics, I think that it's a relevant conversation to have right now about UX. So the answer is yes. It's both. I think it will get. The interview process I think can be beneficial for everyone, but UX relate. There are things about UX that, like when I ask an interviewee, tell me what design thinking means to you. I'm not really. What I'm wanting to hear are the key words of that they even know what design thinking is. I really, what it means to them in their research is, it is important. But for someone that's like transitioning from academics to UX, that question lets me know how much they've tried to learn about the design thinking, about UX research. And so it's kind of a trick question a little bit because I want to hear some keywords.
So you, aside from human-centered design and questions like that, in your workshop abstract, you have the question, tell me about yourself. So why do you think that one is so important?
Well, I think it's important because as someone that's searching to pull someone into a team, I want to understand how that person will fit into the culture of the team. And so learning about who that person is, as a cultural fit, to me is just as important as knowing their skills and their experience. And so I'm trying to, balance all these things in a 30-minute interview, trying to glean this information.
And so I think you also said in the abstract you can do some role playing. Is that correct?
Yes, and because I think that it's very important to, like I said earlier, being on both sides of the coin, I didn't realize until I was interviewing others, like exactly, just gave me a different perspective. And so I think that role playing, being an interviewer, also helps people be a better interviewee. And so there'll be some space in that. But I also would like to, in the workshop, do this in a place of a design thinking model so that the people who aren't familiar with UX can understand what it means when to say an empathy session or an interview or a ideate interview. Those things I think having practice and knowledge at the same time, I think builds better understandings for people to use.
Got it. And so what do you think everybody will be able to take away from this? What are the main sort of, the main
I really think, my presentation definitely is going to have, what to do and what not to do. And it's also full of links to my sources so that for additional, where that people can go for additional information for like vocabulary to use in different industries, because research and market research the business has different language than it does in UX research, and I think it's really important when you're going into an interview at least to have some knowledge of this and to be able to speak the language, which as anthropologists, that's something that we highly value, is learning the language of others. So.
Good. So for anybody who can't make it to New York, if they wanted to see the presentation or get information or learn more about, you, talk to you, what would be the best way to get in touch?
Oh, definitely. I'll have my email and LinkedIn accounts attached to the deck, but I really would like to get the deck out because I do think that it's chock full of resources where people who are looking for a job can like say, okay, now, where can I go to get good information about like the employee tracking systems, resume. How do I make sure that my resume has the right keywords in the right places? And so the deck will have that kind of information. So LinkedIn, Beth Anglin Holland, or my email, Beth Holland, BETHOLLAND. I left it. It's just one H at iCloud.com. So
sounds good. Well, Beth, thanks very much for taking the time today. It sounds like a great presentation, and good luck.